I like to subscribe, do all that. You know what time it is? Netflix time. Another untold story called Deal with the Devil. Now, it's based around the life of Christy Martin, who was a former boxer. Now, I knew about her putting women's boxing on the map, but man, I did not know all this stuff about her personal life. It's deep. Spoiler alert, let's get it. So Christy grew up in a city outside of West Virginia, and she got herself involved in a tough man contest back in 1986. She was knocking people out, giving niggas the business. She had won like $300 in one of her fights. Then she had a promoter by the name of Jim that really wanted to train her and took her out to Bristol, Tennessee. Now, because women fighters were considered as a joke back then, we found out Jim didn't really want to train her. He was forced into it by the promotion. Until Christy showed him what she could do in a sparring match or whatever like that. And they noticed early that she has a strong ass chin. So they was like, bet we're gonna take a chance on her, we're gonna train her and everything like that. Gets her trained up, whipping everybody's ass all the way up to 1992. Then we found out their relationship got a little bit more than professional. Secretly, they didn't get married throughout that time. Jim was like 25 years older than her, actually 2 years older than her dad, so you know what I'm saying? So obviously her father wasn't approving of any of this shit. But she gonna follow her trainer to the ends of the earth, so it is what it is. So she goes from a small town called Imani, West Virginia. Forgive me if I'm saying it wrong. It's not even really a whole town really, it's just a road with a couple of houses on it. So while she's giving us a small tour of the house that she bought, we also found out in high school she was a 2-year All-Pro in basketball. And she knew this lady by the name of Sherry, who played basketball with her. They became best friends, and more than friends. But at the time, she was keeping it on the low. You know, back then, gays and homosexuals and stuff like that weren't allowed, you know what I'm saying? People weren't talking about it as much. She really didn't even talk about it that much around with her family. Her mom was cool, but she was on that bullshit. I'll explain later. And like I said before, Christy got into a real relationship. Then Jim actually got her a meeting to meet up with the biggest promoter of all time, Don King. So he showed her a tape of her old fights, then the tape fizzled out. Then when the tape fizzled out, she actually started shadow boxing in his office, just to show him. It was enough for him to see, and when Don King was like, hey, well, how much money are you making on your fights? Jim was like, can we at least go over the contract? Don King was like, $5,000 to sign this contract. Jim was like, okay, bet. And now, not only was she being promoted by Don King, but she was actually going to be in the undercard of a Mike Tyson fight. Yeah, in 1996, at MGM Grand in Vegas, the first woman undercard in a big main event status. She goes out there to fight Christy Gogarty. I'm sorry, I messed up her first name. I forgot her first name. I think it was Jamie, I'm not sure. Anyway, it was a hell of a fight. Bloody nose and everything. It was made happen. Christy won the fight. She was a made woman at this point, putting women on the map in boxing. And she got the recognition of not knowing that everybody was getting popping, but on top of that, they claimed it the best fight on the entire card. Even the card with Tyson and Bruno on it. Shit was crazy. They were calling her for Jay Leno shows, calling her. She's like, get the fuck out of here. They're not calling me. They're like, no, dead serious. They are calling you. She got the cover of Sports Illustrated and all that. Then we talk about this lady named Lisa, who happens to be a 2-time women's champion. And with anybody on top of the world doing what she's doing, eventually you're gonna get a little cocky, try to sell fights, do all that. And she was talking big shit to people. Yes, knocking niggas out make you do that, but still. She wasn't giving her contemporaries any respect, and Lisa wasn't handling that shit. 2001, this stage is set. Christy versus Lisa. So Lisa thought Christy had one speed, just straight go, 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 go. But Christy started studying people like Ali and Chavez. She's like, I gotta fight a smart fight. I'm gonna get a 2-time champion right here. And keep in mind, she had no legitimate boxing ground when she first started back in '86. So when she got in there against a more powerful Lisa, Christy was doing her jabs, backing up, fighting a smart fight. And completely overwhelmed Lisa and gave her the business. Giving her 44 straight wins, no losses. Then we start getting to her personal life. She wanted to get a different trainer because she felt like Jim could teach her all that he's already taught her. She wanted to get a different perspective from another trainer. The only problem is, you're married to this guy, so it's not going to be that easy to get out of. And on top of that, we found out he's very controlling. So we get into a situation where he's actually sparring with her one day, and he ends up knocking her out. Now, leading up to this point, she's never been knocked out by anybody before, let alone her fucking trainer. And considering who he was, he knew exactly what he was doing to make sure that he hit the right points to get her off her feet. Then in 2003, we got up-and-coming star Layla Ali, Muhammad Ali's daughter. At this stage of her career, she thinks to herself, Christy Martin wants to fight me? Get the fuck out of here. I'm bigger, I'm stronger, I'm faster, a lot younger at this point. And of all people, Christy asks Lisa to help spar with her. There's some irony for that ass. Layla goes to weigh in, looking as beautiful as she wants to look. Because she was so much smaller than her opponent, she came in there with military fatigues. Probably had stuff in her pockets for the weigh-in. It's crazy. But back then, they really didn't care about the weight and height and stuff like they should for women fighters, as they would for any other fighter, but still, it's crazy. But the world wanted to see this fight so bad, they was like, fuck this shit. We put this on for all women in the world. And in August of 2003, it happened. Christy Martin versus Layla Ali. And in round 1, Layla hit her with an overhand right and knocked the equilibrium off automatically. Christy said the whole time she was fighting, she felt like she was laying on her side, like sideways. Throughout the fight, you could tell she wasn't able to see straight, maybe a concussion or two, something. It got to a point where Layla clearly won this fight. But before, when most of the trainers and everybody knew she was off, Jim told them not to stop the fight. Whatever happened to trainers protecting their fighters? Crazy thing was, Jim wasn't even in the locker room with her afterwards. He was talking to other people and promoters and whatnot. She was in the locker room by herself after that. Layla undisputed giving niggas the business. 2008, we get to them doing scenes of coke But they don't actually show them doing it, but you know they're doing it. Now, why is it set up like this, right? Because apparently Jim had cameras all around the house that he knew about. Obviously, cameras Christy did not know about. It got to a point where Christy was doing coke during training. The situation in the household was getting verbally and physically abusive. Christy's mom was always sticking up for Jim, even though she knew Jim was on some bullshit. She was getting in random fights. She didn't even know what a record was from that point on. Then Christy got on Facebook. She hit up a girl she ain't hit up in a long time. Her homegirl Sherry. She ain't talked to her in like 20 years. And basically she was just reaching out to her, actually just telling her everything. At that point she didn't even care if Jim found out. She knew he was gonna find out anyway. So Christy and Sherry ended up getting together. This was going on all the way up to November 2010. And this is where it get crazy. Jim's been stalking Christy because Christy has gotten away from him for so long, and he knows that she's with Sherry. He knows exactly where both of them at this random hotel. So Christy feels like she has no choice but to save Sherry. She goes back home to Jim. And then back at their home, they was doing coke, they were both unhappy. And then she couldn't take it anymore. She was like, Jim has only been using me for an ATM and all this other stuff. Using me like a cash cow. They get into a scuffle, he ends up stabbing her, they both end up getting cut. Jim snatches his pink gun that she's always been carrying around, he ends up shooting her. He's trying to clean the blood off him somehow. She ends up getting away out the house. Jim leaves the house around that time too. He ends up hiding in somebody's shed. Christy's dad is ready to hunt this nigga down as anybody would. After all this, Christy's mom's still standing up for Jim. The fuck is wrong with you? The story gets out in the papers, that shit is wild. We get a couple words throughout the documentary from the greatness that is Mike Tyson. Lisa hears about everything and then she comes out to assist Christy. During the trial hearing, we found out that she got her head bashed into a dresser. The shot was actually in her back. The bullet is still in her back. We don't know exactly what the punishment is yet, but we know it's coming. Christy wants to get back in the ring and she wants to get training from her eye doctor, Manny. At first he's kind of reluctant, but then he goes along with it. He's like, all right, that's what you want. So she's trying to win her 50th fight. She's 49-5. And she's gonna fight this lady by the name of Dakota Stone. Now this story's been going on for years, but I'm not really sure. But they say when this fight came up, she still had the bullet in her back. Now I'm not sure how legit that is or not. I just wanted to let y'all know that. But Christy was giving Stone the business. She was on her way to getting her 50th win. And she had knocked her down twice. But during the fight, she ended up breaking her hand. Because the doctor wouldn't allow her to continue because of the broken hand. She literally had about, 2 more rounds to go. They stopped her from getting her 50th win. And Stone won the fight due to a broken hand from Christy. Turns out her hand was more broken than she realized. So what was supposed to be a 2-hour surgery turned into 7 hours. Now we get back to the case. She put everything on the table, put everything on blast about Jim. And Jim's bitch ass got 25 years. Basically, if he does come out, he'll be 92 years old. And Christy's dad said, fuck all that. If he lives long enough, I'll be waiting for him. I get it, my G, but I'm gonna need you not to say stuff like that on camera. So she's been back at her house. She talks about how she's had this dream for 9 years about Jim chasing her with a fucking knife. It's crazy. But she has a therapist. She's been going through things trying to get over it. Even if therapists tell her she's never going to get over it, but there's better ways to, try to cope with it. And she's learning day by day. But she does have a school and a foundation dedicated to other fighters and up-and-comers. And throughout all this, she ended up getting married to Lisa of all people. The irony is amazing. And Christy's mom finally got her act together. Like, stop trusting Jim with some bullshit. And they've been living their lives happy as they could possibly live it. Man, that was a wild-ass Untold right there. Deal with the Devil on Netflix. Check it out. Like, click, subscribe, do all that. You know what time it is. Click these, y'all. These best stars. Big. You got that slogan.